Please welcome Birdie Real Bird.
Should I just stand here?
Yeah.
Okay. Balasha Vasane Ushuk. Be a shitchiduk. Be Yoshbakarik. Be Apsáalooke. My name is first many times. I'm a big Lash woman and child of whistling water. And I'm an Apsáalooke woman. That's what I just said. And I've been beading for a long time. I started beading when I was 12, around 12 years old, 10 years old maybe. Used to sit by my grandmother. All the women in my life were beaders. And I'd sit by them. And I was probably a little pest, but I kind of hang out with my grandmother all the time, and she was always beading. My aunts were beaders, my mom was a beader, and but my grandmother, when I got bigger, she started me on this project of making medallions. This is what a medallion looks like. But back then, the medallions we made, my grandmother had me make, were circular beading. So you bead in a circle. And she said, if you can make those points perfect, you're gonna be a good beader. And I was always trying to make my points in that circular beading to be perfect. And I crunch beads, I pull beads and I break them, and she'd say, don't do that, you're gonna break your thread. But I punched those beads, and for some reason my thread didn't break, but I get those perfect points. And pretty soon, she must have realized I was an okay beader. So she'd have me make these little medallions, and I'd bead. She'd bead too, but we made these medallions smaller than these. And we started selling them. So we'd make about 3, 4 of them. She'd string them up, put the string on to make the necklace part, and a little dangly here, and she'd put buckskin in the back, and then we'd go to BIA housing and IHS housing and Crow agency, and we'd go door to door and we'd sell them. Pretty soon, I started college, and we were still at it. Must have been a little business that I didn't realize at that time. But in college, I needed gas money to go back and forth. And I was in Dillon, Western Montana College, and she would send me, when I got home, she'd get all these beads together, and she'd get everything together, and she'd send it with me. So during the time I'm in Dillon, I'd be making medallions, and then I'd bring it back, and then she'd string them up real fast, and we'd go sell them, and I'd get gas money to come home, or to go back to college. That went on for a long time. So that's how I started beading, about 12. Then, on the way over, I remembered something. I went to college here, when it was Eastern Montana College, and here they had this Miss Indian Montana pageant, and they got all these girls from all over Montana. And I was going to college here at that time, and they were talking about talent. And I'm going like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I don't sing, I don't dance, I don't do any instrument or whatever. And then my mom said, well, what about put out your beadwork? By then, I had made this dress right here, the L-tooth dress, and I made my belt, beaded belt, and my mom made the leggings. And so I brought all those things out and kind of like this, and I talked about beadwork, just like right now. So that was when I was probably 20 years old or 21 or something like that. Now my age is, oh, I almost forgot how old I was. I'm 68 years old now, and I'm still beading. And for some reason, my hands don't hurt, my body doesn't hurt, and but I think it's because when I was about, my mom realized I liked beads and beading, and so her aunt had a beading necklace, and she asked for that beading necklace for me, and I still have that beading necklace, and I think maybe that kind of gave me the right to bead, and so now my body's used to all this beadwork. Last night I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning to finish this jacket. So I got a little bit of flowers back here. I got this jacket from the thrift store. It was a man's suit jacket. It's kind of like a buckskin. And I got these fringes from Montana Leather, and I started fringing. And then I started beading these flowers. But I'm going to Las Vegas, so I'm gonna wear this outfit there, you know. Actually, this is a Las Vegas outfit. It's not really for this. And, but I bead, when I bead, I don't stop. Sometimes I bead all night, and my mother used to just get after me. You don't bead at night. But today, lights are good. Back then, there were hardly any lights, so they only beaded during the day. But I have these lights, about 3 lights in my workroom that are like daylight. And so I can bead. If I don't feel like quitting, I just keep on beading. And so it's a good therapy for me. Some people, when I meet them, oh, you're the beader. Yeah, I like to bead. Oh, can't stand beading, it's so boring. How could you do it? They say, but wait now, it's not tedious to me, it's not boring to me. And when they kind of say that to me, it's like an insult to me, because when I'm beading, it makes me feel good. It's a good therapy for me. Sometimes when I'm really upset, I kind of take my beads out, because I've been dealing with this sickness right now. I had breast cancer, knew about it last August, and I've had 2 surgeries. And for a month, I've been laying around, kind of really getting depressed. And the only thing that kind of saved me were beads again. So beads always save me. I started getting this creative urge or whatever, and I just started kind of designing these little flowers, and it made me feel good to put the colors together to get the beads out. That's always a good feeling for me. And so I continue doing that, and I just remembered something too. When I was about 18, 19, my friends would go out, and I'd say, hey, I'm gonna sit with these beads tonight. I might go out with you tomorrow night. So I'd sit there and I'd bead while they went out and went to the bar. And I think that saved me from becoming an alcoholic also. And then during COVID, I beaded all these things right here on this table. I stayed home and I beaded, and it saved me from COVID too. Knock on wood, never got COVID. Because I stayed home, I lived by myself. And I was getting designs, getting colors. I had beads. So when I buy beads, I buy kilos. Kilos are the big bags of beads. I use size 11. Some of these are 10s. So I like to outline with 10 white 10s and then fill it up with 13s or 11s, smaller bead, and it stands out. So the thing about beadwork is how you put the colors together. My stitches aren't perfect. I'm not a perfect beader, but I think it's all about color. Because my grandmother, she said, don't ever put turquoise and green together. Because when you put turquoise and green together, you can't really see the design, she said. And then don't put, and I think that at that time she gave me a color wheel. But my ancestors, when beads first came, they only had these 6 colors. And I think one of the first colors they had, they called this lavender. Today they call it Cheyenne pink, rose pink, or whatever. Cheyennes claim this, but that's okay. See this? They were small lavender colors. And the first, around the late 1700s, when the traders started coming in and trading, they brought beads. And the Crow women, Apsáalooke women, were quite the artisans. They just knew what to do with the beads, but they adapted before beads. I always talk about before Christ, but now we talk about before beads. Before beads, the medium was paint, earth paints to decorate their clothing. The other one was quill. And I don't know how to do quill work, but it hasn't been very popular since the 1930s. Around the 1930s, they kind of dropped quill and paint, and they went to beads. So the main medium after, what year was that? About 18, beads first came around the late 1700s. By the time 1805 came along, they had started decorating their clothing and everything with beads. So then you move down a little ways. They were still trying to use quill and beads together, and trying to so in some of the museums, some of the pieces have beadwork and quill together. So when you do the quill work, it's laid flat. And I think if you see this dress after, when you come around, see this part right here? That's an adaptation of quill work. They tried to make it kind of look like quill work, because quill work laid down just like that, this flat. And this is called a lazy stitch. The lazy stitch, you use one needle, one thread, and you're working on the top of the skin, or whatever. Most of the time, and my grandmother always said this, you don't poke all the way through most of the time. You're always working on the top, she said. When you poke through and come back up, your lines don't get straight. So she always licked her needle and she'd mark the line, and then she'd start doing this lazy stitch. And her lazy stitch was so straight. My grandmother was a really good beader. Her name, I didn't tell you her name. Her name is Florence Real Bird, or Florence Medicine Tail Real Bird. Her Indian name was Bhakti. That means joins activities. So she's the one I was really close to. I was close to my mom also, and she was an excellent beader also. But my grandmother helped me make this dress. So there's the stitches. I got into kind of, all right, there's the lazy stitch, that one. Then you have the overlaid. And overlaid would be, okay, see this piece right here in the middle? I overlaid, the stitch I used to make this part is overlaid. That overlaid stitching, you use 2 needles, 2 threads. So you thread up a bigger needle, and I always use a buckskin needle. That means it has a sharper tip to tack down, and you tack down with that needle, that thread is single thread. Then you use a smaller needle and you double thread it, and that's the thread that you string up the beads with. So you string up the beads, you lay it down, and you can draw any line, any design, and you can do this. So I strung up the double threaded needle, and you string it up with the beads. Then you lay it down, hold it, then you start tacking it. 3, 4, 4, 5. I just tack it down. I'm not uniform or whatever. I don't always do 2, 3 all the time. I just do 3. Sometimes I'll do 5, and I'll tack it down, and I come back and I come through, and the beads are laid down. So that's number 2 stitch. The number 3 stitch is the, it's called spot stitch. And spot stitch is kind of, it used to be popular back in the days, but now it's not as popular. You usually spot stitch when you have solid colors, solid areas. Like I could have spot stitched this turquoise right here, because it's kind of, it's solid, and so you string it up and you fill up the whole space. Then you come back with a tacking down needle, and you tack down up, all the way up and back down, all the way up and back down. It's not a, you don't string it up and tack down every 3, 4 beads. This one is a little, I think they're trying to go faster, or they're kind of into a different way of, because maybe it's tedious when it's the same color, there's really no other color in there, and they have to keep, they tack down 3, 4, it's probably tedious. So then they try to go faster, and they do the up and down, tacking down. So a lot of pieces in the museums have that spot stitch. So those are the 3 stitches that I don't normally use spot stitch, but those are the 3 stitches the Apsáalooke used to bead. The first 6 colors that we got, 6 or 7 colors that we got from traders back then, around 1800s probably, were the lavender, the navy blue, the white. These are size 11s. Yellow, red, green, and there's light blue. I didn't bring my light blue, I forgot. I was gonna get it, and I missed it. Anyway, so if you go to a museum, you look at the Apsáalooke beadwork collections, these are all the colors that they use. And this right here, this color, this martingale, I copied this from a museum piece. So this part right here, the middle part, exact same colors. They might be a little different, but this is the design I borrowed from that old martingale. And then these flowers on here, these are my flowers. So the other martingale had flowers, but I didn't copy right off of there. I kind of designed my own flowers. And a lot of times, all these trade items started coming in. There was also trade cloth. So a lot of times you see they just bead right on the trade cloth. But it's canvas, paper, like the brown paper sack. I don't know what we're gonna do when they don't make them anymore. The only place we can get them is Winco right now. But plastic is taking over, so you go canvas, paper, canvas, paper, canvas. You can have 3 canvas, and then you get your sewing machine and you go just stitch it all over the place. That's the modern day thing that you would bead on now. And then I know that they also bead on felt, the kind of stiff felt. They bead on this thing that's kind of like a Wonder Under, and it's starchy, stiff. So they've been beading on that too. So today, they're beading on not buckskin anymore. Unless you're making a buckskin dress. But if you're making a medallion, this one is got buckskin and a little bit of paper on there. Paper and buckskin in the back, and then the design. Let me get into design. So a lot of times they beaded, their designs were triangles, geometric. And they came from the designs on the parfleche with the earth paints. How they designed those parfleche was how they wanted to bead. So they started beading these triangles, these diamonds, these squares, because those parfleche were painted like that. And then people always ask me about black beads. My theory is that when the traders came, these were the colors that they had. So there's no black here. So I think they just didn't know black. There was no black bead, so they just started using navy blue. Their navy blues on the old beadwork is really dark, and it's almost like black, but it's navy blue. So I think that's why. And then I think after that we got used to not using black. So I hardly use black unless somebody orders something from me and say, well, can you put black in there and put this one black? Yeah, I'll do that. But usually, all this beadwork right here, I have no black color on there. I have navy blue. So I think that's what happened. And then the designs, I think their designs were just nature. Whatever they saw, the nature shape of teepees, shape of trees, plants, flowers. It's not a family design. I have never heard of family designs, and I've been beading 12 years and I'm kind of old now, and my grandmother, way back, she taught me how to bead, and she never said, Birdie, this is a family design, don't let anybody use it. No, she never said that either. She said, Birdie, you're not the only beater, so don't act like you're the best. And I always think, what? But I'm not. I'm not the only beater. I'm not the best beater. I think why I got a little notoriety is because of my colors that I put together. And my bead work is not all smooth and perfect either. It's a little rough, like these flowers. They're a little rough. There's some mistakes there, but you can't see it. Only I can see it. And then I think that I don't own beadwork. There's so many good beaders at Crow Agency. And it's been over 200 years, hasn't it, since beads came? And we're still beading, and that's good. And I really am proud of all those beaders in Crow Agency. We've got a lot of young beaders out there. And sometimes I kind of open up my house for whoever wants to come and bead, and we bead, and we have beading circles. But I think that if we can teach young people how to bead like my grandmother did for me, it would go a long ways. But the other thing I work on is language. And this is a little bit different, but language, the Crow language is not being used anymore. There's hardly any Crow speakers. We lose Crow speakers every day now with COVID too. And sometimes I worry about young people. My son is 38 years old. His first language was Crow. And so when I talk to him, I talk Crow, but then I talk English because, the people around him are not Crow speakers. And that's hard. But one time he's about 10 or 11, and we went to bed. And I'm in my bedroom, and he's across the hall in his bedroom, and I said, God, Wacy, we've been talking English all day long. Did you know that? He goes, he didn't say anything, and I said, tell me one word that you remember in Crow. Tell me one word, come on. And I waited for him to say something, and he didn't say it for a long time, and finally, in Crow, he says, I want to go to sleep, quit bothering me. So he knows, he still knows. That's what he said. So some of the things that I do besides beading, trying to teach beading to young people, and then I'm trying to use the language. We need to use the Crow language, I think, a little bit more at home, and in the houses. But if you look at the Crow reservation, every house has a Crow speaker in there. If there's not 3, there might be, there's 1, every house. But they're not even using it. Oh, I'm going off the track, going off someplace else. I'll come back to beads. That's why I'm here. Okay, so around, let me look through my notes. I said I'd give this really, okay. I use this book a lot. It's called Crow Indian Beadwork. It's notes from these historians from way back around 1800s, late 1700s. It's Wild Shoot and Ayers. And in here, it talks all about Crow beadwork. And all the sizes are on there. So everything right here is all from this book. Because all the measurements are on there, all their notes, they have really, detailed notes. And so that's what I follow with if I'm gonna make something. I notice that the beaders, they just make it any size they want. but I think if you look at the museum pieces, there's a certain size that they come, and I think they look beautiful. Sometimes the beaders at Curl, they make things too big, too much beads and too big. A lot of pieces in the museum also have a lot of wool. See, I have a little bit of wool here. We have wool to border it. So it has, I think every beader should make it a point to go to a museum nearby. Cody has a good collection. Bradford, Brinton, and Sheridan, past Sheridan, has a good collection of Crow beadwork. Because that's what I did about 20-some years ago. I think I was there in Boston at the Peabody Museum, went in to see their Crow collection, was in there all day long. And that's how besides beading, that's how I kind of got into it more too, also. It's always good to see old beadwork. And that's what I aim for, is just to kind of make it like it used to be. So, let's see. I think that before beads, they had earth paints, and earth paints came in these colors also. These earth, there's red, there's even navy blue earth that they use, yellow and green, and I don't think there was a lavender earth color, but that's how they decorated their clothing, their horse gear, their bags. They really like to decorate bags. There's so many decorated parfleche out there in museums that I think that's pretty amazing, that just wandering around on this earth with nature and starting to use all that, what they have around them. That's what they did. And they were artists. They put good colors, or they put colors together that you can see from way down there. That's what my grandmother said too. She said, put some colors together so we can see it a mile away. And we'd laugh about it, but that's what they did. Another thing that they used from nature is elk teeth. The crows are the only ones that use elk teeth and have elk teeth dresses. They have elk teeth necklaces. They have elk teeth dresses. They have elk teeth on some of their medicine. I saw some of the medicine bundles with elk teeth on it. And that, I think that's, who would ever think of killing an elk, taking the eye tooth, just the two of them, and using it for something? Can you imagine? I mean, would you ever think of something like that, to do that? No, I wouldn't, to decorate a whole dress. 700 teeth. You'd have to kill about 350 elk to get a whole dress with real elk teeth. Another thing that they used was quill, and I don't have quill work. Quill ended about 1930. The last known quill worker was Little Light. Oh, the mother of Little Light? Okay.
It was not Little Light, it was something. I don't know.
Oh, she's my note taker. So, after about 1930, or the 19th century, beads became the major medium for decorating clothing. And elk teeth probably for the dresses. Let's see, what else? Do you have any questions about beading?
Yes, thank you. First of all, it's really fascinating and thank you so much for continuing this tradition. I have 3 questions about the beads themselves. First, who made them 200 years ago? Was it the white men or natives? Second, are they handmade or factory made? And the third is, what is the material of the beads? Is it glass or is it something else? So again, who made them? Are they handmade or not? And what is the material?
Okay. They're trade items. When the French people came and what else? Is that
Spanish, I think.
huh?
Spanish.
Spanish. Oh, it's Spanish. Traders started coming in and they brought the beads. So it came from
So the French and the Spaniards?
the French and the Spanish, and they were made, factory made, and they're glass.
Okay.
So they produce some large amounts. So we didn't make beads.
Got it.
What we made was, or what we got from Earth, everything to decorate we got from Earth. And then we got the traders coming in. And the traders brought everything we wanted. Scarves, wool, beads, fabric. They started bringing in fabric. But before that, before the traders came in, we were using buckskin, earth paints, and quilt work to decorate. And before the buffalo left, or before the buffalo extinguished, they were gone, we were using buffalo, the robes, everything about the buffalo, the bones, everything was used, and that's what we were using. And then all the outside influences started coming in, and it changed the way they dressed also. The women started made cotton dresses, and they're called tea dresses. Then they started wearing leather belts, but they kept their moccasins. They make their moccasins with elk hide, moose hide, and the thicker hide, and then their scarf came from Scotland. So we got a hold of all these outside trade items, and it started changing the art form, how to decorate. It just changed the way they dressed. So
Thank you.
that's how it went. So it's all from the traders. One time I was on a tour in Cody, and they took us out to this mountain where it flipped, right outside of Cody. Right before you get to Cody, there's this mountain that the top part turned over. I'm not sure the name of that mountain, but we went on a tour and we went back there, and one of the historians we were with, he said, this is where the Crows first heard the English language, the very first time. And he was saying it was around the late 1700s or something like that, and that's when the traders started coming in, right about then, at that time, too. So, outside influence changed how we decorated and the art. So, let's see. Yeah, it's over 237 years ago, or over, yeah, about that.
How do you differentiate between using the florals and the geometric designs?
Oh, Okay, so when beads first came, they were doing a lot of the geometric. Then later on, there was a period where they started doing florals. And florals were the thing. But if you go to a museum and you look at all the collection, there's hardly any flowers. But see, this martingale, it had some flowers on the side, and this was the earlier, not the most recent designs, I think, started coming in with floral. And the crows were not too big on flowers for a while, until later on, probably in the 1950s, 30s, around there, I think flowers started coming in, or they started beading flowers. So this one is this dress here. This is called a nest purse dress. And the nest purse were floral beaters. And I think that's kind of why they call this nest purse dress. There's all different kinds. You can bead any flower you want. I like tiger lilies. So this is a tiger lily, and this is also a museum piece. I copied it from a dress from a museum, and my flowers are different though. But it's about like this. So these are, this is also a museum piece. I copied this from a museum in Minnesota. It was in a magazine, and it was a crow dress. So I do a lot of museum replicas, and I worked with a field museum during that Apsáalooke Women and Warriors exhibit. And there were some pieces that they brought out. They were so old, if you touch them, they were falling apart. So I made those replicas of those. When they send me measurements, the exact measurement, and the colors and everything, I duplicated that belt. But I made a leather belt for them. I made, what else did I make for them? Moccasins. I made moccasins for them, a tea dress, cotton dress for them. And another time, I made a doll that was falling apart. They sent me that doll. I make dolls too. They sent me that doll, and I copied it and sent it back to them. So I can kind of look at it and figure out, and it's probably not the exact color, but I try to find the beads that kind of match, and I start making those dresses, or the dolls, and the dresses, and the belts. So I could look at it, and it might not be the exact material, but I make it as close as I can. Okay, any other questions?
Symbolically, what do the geometric figures mean? Is there any?
They were from the parfleche, from earth paints on the parfleche, their designs on the parfleche. They copied those designs after they got beads. So it was their designs from before.
Yeah. Well, like, does a diamond shape have any symbolic meaning, or is it kind of the time one? You know,
there's no real symbolic thing, except that if you want it to be symbolic, you can. But I have never known somebody say, well, this is, But I always think that triangle is teepee. And any kind of shape out there in nature, I think they kind of make that design. Because I had an order for I make leather belts. That's another thing. I went to Peabody and over almost 30 years ago, and there was drawers and drawers of leather belts. So I looked at them, and I came back and I made this Western leather belt about 1 1/4 1.5 inches wide, and I learned how to edge it from looking at it. So I came home and I made those leather belts, and they have these little brass spots on it. So I made those brass spots, and then they have box beading. So I started making those designs and making those leather belts. Well, this guy that was a hunter, he ordered one of those leather belts. He said, could you put elk tracks, bear tracks, and he wanted all these animal tracks on there. And I went and I looked at all those tracks, those animal tracks, and I started just making them. And one of them were 2 triangles, or no, 2, a diamond just right in half. And then 2 triangles next to each other, kind of like. So you can do, I think, any kind of symbolism you want it to be, with art. It's art. It's not really, their designs, I have in my book some designs that are used frequently, and I think one of them represent a star. Some of you can tell me when to quit, huh? Because I'll be here all day if you want me to.
Maybe you could show that and then.
Okay, all right. See, this is a parfleche from Earth Paint. Here's another one. These are old, and they used beadwork to make these designs. Horse tracks on the moccasin, see? And you can do, and somebody probably came up with that. I was going to talk about cradle board for a second. I can't find my design page, but there's a lot of squares. I wonder where my design page went. Oh, here it is. See? These are the frequent designs that were used. They're kind of simple. There's that one. I use that one a lot. So, cradle boards. I had a cradle board. Didn't bring that, but the measurements for cradle board is in here also. And in Crow, you say bagarija, child's foot. It's supposed to be the shape of a foot. And see this bottom, the very bottom part of the cradle board is when you get a piece of paper put it on top of your foot and get your instep all the way to where your instep is, and it comes, kind of comes like this. That's supposed to be the bottom of cradle board. And sometimes they put old moccasin tops on the bottom of those cradle boards, at the very bottom, the base, at museums. So today, if you look at a cradle board and they have a really wide bottom part, that's not right. See, you have to get the right measurements that your ancestors had. It's all in this book right here. So, and if you go to a museum, you look at it, you think, wow, that's, you know, this is a good size. And it's not just about beads. It's got some other wool. It has other things on it too. Like, I see a lot of, some bead work, they bead it right on the rawhide. So, like this. See, this is, this part's rawhide and painted. And then this is horsehair. So you use a lot of natural. You want to stay with natural a lot of times. I guess, oh, this is a lazy stitch right here. A lot of lazy stitch here. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.